Hello everybody, it's List, and today I'm going to be going over every single missing map that we are missing in World of Tanks console. Some of you may or may not know that when Update 6.0, which is about 5 years ago now, they updated the game engine, I believe, and they changed the graphics, and everything about the game changed. It killed off a lot of the players that were in the game, especially the veteran players, because it changed so drastically and looked completely different that people hated it. And also with this edition, they removed basically like 80% of the maps that we had. We had so many maps. I'd say we probably had like 70-ish maps. I don't know the exact number, maybe less, maybe more. We had a ton though. I'd actually say more than that. Well, they have brought some back, but we are still missing, I believe, around 20. And today I'm going to go over every one of them that we are missing. So if any of you are wondering what they were, yeah, I'll have some clips up on screen here that you guys can see of what they were like. And just remember that these graphics are going to be very old because this was before 6.0. First up is going to be the map Caen. This was never a favorite map, I don't believe, as it was mostly rolling hills and just grass. There was a small town on it, but it was not the best map. However, even if it's not the best map, I think they should bring every one of these maps back that I'm going to talk about, just because it's more variety to the game. And yeah, it was a pretty neat looking map. Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Reskin or Sword Beach that we have in the game right now, but it was a little bit different. Number 2 is going to be Pacific Island. This is one of the maps I want back the absolute most. Basically, this map was an island in the middle of an ocean, and it was very tropical, and I just love the map. It was a small map, so maybe don't bring it to tier 10 potentially, but I do really miss this map, and it looked very cool. There were so many variants of it, because back in the day, there were map and weather variants, which I'll get into a little bit later, and it just brought so much variety, and this map was very, very good. Another map we're missing is Tundra. This map is still on PC, I believe, so if you want to play it, you can go play it on World of Tanks PC. It was a smaller map, and it had the caps located somewhat similar with a bridge in between. And you could actually just run across those bridges at the very beginning and try and cap out. I remember I used to do when I was an inexperienced player, and I thought I'd win the game like that. No, you're going to get shot, but it was always a very interesting map, the way it was laid out, as there were like valleys and stuff. And it is still a cool map that I would like to see back. Sacred Valley is probably the map I want back most, and I would say maybe in the community is what they want back most. It was I believe a Chinese or an Asian map, something like that. Set at nighttime as always, I think. I could be wrong about that, but I believe it was always set at night. And it was very cool because it was almost like it was a fiery map because it was at nighttime and there was fire everywhere. And this map was humongous. I believe it was 1,000 by 1,000 at least, 1,000 meters. It might have been larger, I don't really remember, and I don't have any proof. But it was a very, very cool map because there was so much elevation, and there was a little castle in the middle, I remember, and up near the caps and stuff, there were some amazing climbs you could do on this map, and I really hope they bring this one back because it was truly a very special map, and no other map really looked like it. I'm hoping this is the next map they bring back. Next up is Ravaged Capital. This one was basically the Paris map from PC. I don't think ours was ever called Paris. I could be wrong, as I don't really know. I can't find any information on that. So I believe ours was just called Ravaged Capital. Basically, this was a really interesting map. It was a city map, and at the very end of it, there was the Eiffel Tower you could see out in the distance, which was always a nice touch. And I really liked it because it was kind of a different map, as a lot of our city maps are usually like German maps or something similar to that, as they look very German-ish, or they're blown apart cities. But this one was a more formed city, I would say, and it was also kind of pretty, I would say, because of the view it had with the Eiffel Tower and stuff. Hoping they bring this one back because this would be a cool addition. Northwest was a huge map. I believe it was very, I could be wrong, but I think it was like 1,400 by 1,400 meters, or maybe 1,200 by 1,200. It was really big at the time. And the elevation changes were crazy because I believe up at the north spawn it was very high, and once you got down to some of the other areas in the map it was way lower because you could get all the way down by the water, I remember. And this one was very It almost was similar to like how Sacred Valley was, just by how it was very different than the other maps, the overall aesthetic and look of it. And I do think this one would be cool because I also remember some crazy climb glitches and stuff on this map where people could get insanely high, which I would love those to come back because a lot of our maps now are not like that. And this would be another cool one. I think a lot of people either loved this one or hated it. Personally, whether I hate it or love it, I'd like it back because, you know, another map is another map. Windstorm was another interesting one. This was a winter map, which we don't have a whole lot of winter maps. And this one had a little city somewhat in the right corner of the map. However, by this city there was ice, and I remember people would sometimes get pushed into the ice, or they would fall off the edge near the city because it was right there. And it was a very different kind of map, I would say, because there were the rolling hills over on the other parts of the map, almost similar to how Ardennes is. I know a lot of us hate Ardennes, and Ardennes is a bad map. However, I wouldn't put this the highest on my list for it to come back, but I'm sure it will come back eventually because I have heard some people request it. Next up was South Coast. I never really liked this one personally. It had a beach on the left-hand side or around the 2 line, and then everything else were these really tall mountains and hills. Personally, it was just kind of weird, and I'm fine with it to come back, but it's definitely not one of my favorites because of how weird it seemed to be. I also felt like it was very campy because of all the hills and stuff, so if there were a bunch of TDs, it's going to be a 15-minute game, you know. It just took forever. So it's not the one I'd like to see the most because there's a lot of other better options, but I'm sure it will come back. Icebound is another map I'd love to actually see back because this was very similar to Windstorm. However, there was this large dome in the middle of the map and a whole city around it that you would brawl. And it was a great map for pretty much any class, maybe except for light tanks, because there was a heavy flank, or the whole center of the map was heavy oriented or heavy TD oriented. And on the outside of the map, there were these hills and mountains that you could climb upon. If you were a tank destroyer or something, or maybe even a light tank, you could snipe through there. And sometimes you could snipe in through the city from them. This is one I really, really hope they bring back because it was so dynamic and so cool looking. Province. You may say, List, we already have Province in the game. However, no, we don't have the original Province. We have the Province from PC. Many of you may know that Province is, I would say, probably my favorite or second favorite map in the game. But we have the PC version now, which I don't really like. The original Province version was much smaller. Well, not much smaller, but it was a little bit smaller, and it was just a better map, I feel like. I believe it was capped at about tier 4 or 5, which was perfectly fine. If they were to ever bring this version back, they could move it up to tier 6 probably, I would say. And it was just such a better map. I have so much nostalgia from that because I remember my first game ever in the entire game of World of Tanks was on the map Province. And I really want the original version to come back because I just liked it that much better. And that's all of the maps. However, you may say, oh, you said there were 20 maps. That was only 10 maps. There are more maps. So basically, I don't know when this update rolled in. Probably around World of Tanks Mercenaries, so I'm thinking like 2018 maybe. I don't know when the update was. I think it was around that time because I didn't play a whole lot at that time, I remember, so I don't have a whole lot of knowledge from them. But there were mercenary variants of maps. So basically, they would take a map like Himmelsdorf or something and change it up, maybe change the scenery, change some things about the map, and call it a new map, which I absolutely loved these, and I'm hoping that they bring these back. These are actually my main priority, and that's what I'd rather have than some of the other maps. So the first one is Baja. This one I didn't really like. It was just another variation of South Coast, and South Coast I didn't like already, so this didn't really make it any better. This was basically a desert version of South Coast, and that's pretty much about it. Kind of just like a dead version of it, I guess. Dead plants, you know, dead grass, all that kind of stuff. Very tan and orangey-ish. I didn't really like this one. If it doesn't come back, I wouldn't be sad, to be honest. Stadt der Dunkelheit. I don't know if I said that right. But it was a Himmelsdorf reskin, which was one of my favorites. Basically, it was Himmelsdorf at night, and it was almost like the city was destroyed looking, as there were fiery things everywhere, and I think it was slightly different, as some of the buildings were a little bit altered. Could be wrong in that, but I do believe it was like that. And there were these red flags everywhere, almost like the German flags at the time, and it was a very interesting map. And I don't really remember ever seeing it, probably because I wasn't playing the game at that time really. However, this is one that is definitely at the top of my list to come back for the Mercenary variant. Amazon. Okay, this might be controversial because I know so many hated this map. Amazon was a version of the Arctic region, and basically it was a jungle version of Arctic region, and it was at night. So the complaints that people had was that it was almost impossible to see through it because of all the bushes, and it was at night. However, I really liked this one because it provided unique gameplay, and also the little island that you can see when you're on the heavy flank by the water on the normal Arctic region. There was a bridge that actually could take you over to that little island, which was something that it was so cool. And I believe you could actually get to the island. I don't know if it was blocked. I'm sure I'll have a clip here of somebody on it, but I think you could get over there, and that was always really cool because it added an extra spot to get on the map. Kitimat. This is one I really want to see back. This was a Serene Coast variant, and instead of it having the little destructible buildings by the railroad tracks, it had a industrial area, and it was very an area you could get stuck into with heavy tanks and stuff. As you're seeing in this clip, it's pretty big actually, and I think it actually is kind of better than the current map we have, and I'm really hoping that this one definitely comes back because the game plays completely different on that map. Like, the games are not the same because of how it's set up, and I think it would be very interesting to see how it would look in the 6.0 era, just with the new graphics and everything. So this is definitely one I want to see. However, Panama might be the one I want to see the most. This was a Westfield reskin. You guys all know how Westfield is. Westfield is one of the best maps in the entire game. Great for light tanks, great for tank destroyers, great for heavy tanks, great for mediums. It's great for everything. And that's the kind of maps we want to see. Panama was basically a tropical version of Westfield, and it had a river running down where, deep in the valley, we have a couple destructible buildings. There was a river running through there, and I believe there was a waterfall at the south spawn somewhere, and it was very tropical, which was something I loved. There weren't as many bushes, so you couldn't spot as effectively, but I think that's perfectly fine because it needs to be different. And I really love the tropical overall vibe of it, and the sky and everything looks so cool about this one. I really hope they bring this one back because this was one of the best ones out there. A little but not known one is one called Slavage Yard. This was a Malinovka reskin where it was at night, and it was a summer variant also. That's something else we're going to be talking about in the video, are the summer and winter variants. But Slavage Yard was a Malinovka in the summer with some destructible, or not destructible, but undestructible buildings, I guess you could call them. Basically the buildings that you cannot shoot over, that were in the middle of the field in some areas. It wasn't too different than the regular Malinovka, so I'm not exactly sure why it had its own variation, as I don't really remember this one too much. Because, I don't know, I feel like it was just very similar, so it wasn't very memorable. But Malinovka is a great map, so this one would definitely be a great one to bring back. Liberty Fallen. That may sound similar to Liberty Falls. This is another reskin, and Liberty Fallen was more of a burned out version of Liberty Falls, basically with some destroyed stuff, and it was more of a, I don't want to say desert, but almost like all the grass was dead is really the best way I could say it. It was more of a tannish map because it was, you know, Liberty Falls is a very green and luscious map, where Liberty Fallen was not that. It was more of a dead version, is basically the best way I could put it. This one is not a big deal because this is a low tier map. If they bring it back, cool. If they don't, not the end of the world, because it wasn't even that much different than the original. One of the last maps is Caen 1944. Basically, this is the map we have in game right now called Sword Beach. However, I don't think it's the same, and it is slightly different. So I would still like to see Caen back, or Caen 1944 back, Only reason I'm putting it in here is because they changed the name to Sword Beach, and I don't think it's exactly the same. It was set up almost the same, but I'm going to add it to this list anyways because they don't actually have it in the game. Rogues Harbor, if not my favorite one on the entire list. Rogues Harbor was a port reskin. Port is my favorite map. Not sure why. I think port also needs to be brought up to tier maybe 8. I don't know why they have port locked at tier 4 because it's the only map that is locked that low. So Wargaming, if you're watching this, please move port up to tier 8 or 10 because it's a great map and nobody even knows it exists anymore because it's only at tier 4. There are smaller maps that are at higher tiers than port, so I don't know why it's locked down there. However, we're talking about Rogues Harbor. Rogues Harbor was a winter version of the, almost like a winter version of the map port. And there were a couple things, it wasn't too different. There were some train cars that were moved around and stuff, but overall it wasn't that much different. However, I love the map port, so I want to see it back, and this is a really cool map, especially for heavies because it was a somewhat city-oriented map or industrial-oriented map. Redshire 1944. This is the last one I have on our list here, and basically this was a Redshire map, obviously a Mercenary variant, as it says 1944. And this one is one that was not too different. I know there was a castle on it at some point. I don't know if it was always like that, but you could go into the castle. It's more like the version on PC is almost what our 1944 version is like. It is one I'd like to see back because Redshire is a very good map, and I do heavily remember this map and have some very cool memories of it. And that's going to be all the maps. However, we're not done here. There were more variants. There were every map, not every map, let me take that back. Actually, most of the maps, you could have a winter or summer variant or a night or day variant. There were so many different variants that they had back in the game. There were also variants that would change your view range and stuff, like the Desert Storm variant or the Typhoon variant or the Snowstorm variant. There were so many cool variants that could change the game so much. So every map you were getting wasn't exactly the same. I might get Malinovka, and if I get Malinovka now, I know it's going to be a winter map, right? But back in the day, it may be a summer version of the map, and it may be at night. So it's going to be different, or visually different. It's still the same map, but it gives you visually something different to look at, which I think is better because it makes the game a bit more exciting, as you're not getting the same stuff over and over and over. Or sometimes you may get rain, because there were rain variants or snow variants. So it may be Malinovka normal, but it would be snowing. Or Malinovka at night and it would be snowing. I also remember Prokhorovka having a snow variant, which was one I really, really missed, because there were so many maps like that that just were more exciting because there were more things you could see. There were also the war variants, which I don't know if were liked upon the community. I do remember them a lot. I know Ruinberg had a war variant, and basically the war variants were everything was on fire and kind of destroyed, and there was rubble everywhere. Basically like it was a war, you know, a bit more than the actual regular variant. I think Himmelsdorf and a few other of the city maps had this. I'm not going to go into every map and every single variant because that's going to be almost impossible, as I can't find this stuff anywhere. I'm surprised I even was able to find all the different maps that were missing, because trying to search this up on YouTube or the internet or anything is really, really hard to find, believe it or not. And even trying to find gameplay or footage for any of this is very, very hard because it just doesn't come up, or, you know, nobody really filmed this kind of stuff. So I'm sorry if I don't get every single variant here. Also, if there was a map I was missing, this was all the maps that I could come to, and to the friends I talked to that knew about this, this was all the maps that we concluded. There may have been one or two Mercenary variants I missed. I don't know if I did. If I did miss it though, let me know, because I would definitely like to know, because these are the ones I think that are missing. Maybe there's more, I have no idea. I'd like to know though if there are more that I missed here, because they may bring back memories even. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. Make sure to share this video around. I want Wargaming to see this, as I want them to bring our maps back, and I think I can vouch for almost all of us that we all want more maps and more variants. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, because these videos take a lot of time to make, as it's just me, and getting all the footage and commentating over everything takes a lot more effort than just loading up a replay, for example. So yeah, make sure to like and subscribe, and drop your comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one.